Well, back home and in the second major media shake-up in less than a week, News Limited has outlined its plans to cut staff and scale back operations. Now, despite the cuts, the company insists it's not the end of the line for newspapers.
Now, News Limited has also moved to expand the company's share in pay TV in Australia. With us now is our semi-regular media panel, media buyer and executive chairman of Aegis Media, Harold Mitchell, and Bruce Guthrie. He's a former editor of the Murdoch-owned Herald Sun and the Melbourne Age, owned by Fairfax. Good morning to you both, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Starting with you, Bruce Guthrie is a former editor of the Herald Sun. What do you make of what Kim Williams announced yesterday?
Well, can I say first off that there's been two earthquakes this week. The first one shook up Moe, the second one shook up the media, and I think Moe's going to recover a lot faster than the media. If I was an editor of newspapers, I'd say, well, I think newspapers have kind of stepped back a bit this week. Firstly with Fairfax, and then again yesterday. What Kim Williams was really doing yesterday, I think, was saying, we've been a newspaper company and now we're going to be a television and online company, and we're going to begin that process from today.
I was making that point with Paul Barry earlier, because this is exactly what Rupert has done overseas.
Yeah, it's much more that it turns the Australian company a lot more into the US and the British operation almost overnight.
And if we talk about the business side of things, and if we look at News International, or News Corporation as a whole company, I think something like its operating profit in 2010 was $500 million for all of its newspapers around the world combined.
Sure, yeah.
And B-Sky B alone was $1.2 billion. So this seems like a natural move, doesn't it?
Well, there's a couple of points about all of this. And also, we forget sometimes the picture business. They can make 200 or 300 million out of a very successful picture. They can also lose a little bit. There's a couple of points to be made. Firstly, to pick up on a little bit of what Bruce said, that newspapers are around, they're still there. Warren Buffett is buying newspapers. He's buying newspapers because there are markets where it is one of the biggest single sources of information, and they will still be strong. And News have got newspapers like in Geelong. The Geelong paper makes as much money as Fairfax's Financial Review, and so they will continue to be in the newspaper business. So that's the first point to make, as well as what Bruce says, that they are transitioning that change, and that's well underway. But the other point is good for Australia. I'd have to say this, that I've heard Rupert Murdoch say, and he said it to me at an earlier time, that perhaps Australia wasn't as strong as it could have been, but he's clearly come right behind what Australia is. There's a massive investment of a very big world company in Australia, and when you look at the entire world, you say that it's a good place to be. So much of this can be driven by advertising dollars. Very interesting point about that. Australia has the highest per capita advertising spend in the world. We're less than 1% of the world's population. We have 5% of the world advertising market, an advertising spend as big as France, 3 times our size. That's how important it is. And so media people look at it like that, because the new world will be driven as much as anything by advertising. So that's good for world companies that look at Australia and say this is a good place to be, because we know exactly that. We're in an incredible growth zone, and News Corp has said where we're going to put our money to make it work, and it's here.
Because News Limited will now own 100% of Fox Sports Australia. Yeah. And there's very, very little sport that you can see that isn't on pay television nowadays.
Well, Australia is still a little bit unique because of our anti-siphoning, the big games, the grand finals, which means that the free-to-air television networks have got a real future still, because, as we know about sport, of the top 30 free-to-air television programs, nearly half of them are sports. But you rightly say that of the Foxtel programs, all 30 top programs are all sports, and that's key and critical, and I think that's a very good point, that's a great asset to grab in the Australian psyche.
Bruce Guthrie, Kim Williams, for whatever reason, he says he obviously doesn't know, didn't announce a redundancy target yesterday. Do you think he's got a number in mind? He certainly gave every indication it's going to be well north of 1,000.
If he hasn't got a number in mind, that he's not the CEO, I think he is. He knows the number. He mightn't know to the exact sort of decimal point, but you wouldn't embark on a process like this without knowing the number. I thought yesterday was a real exercise in spin control, and by comparison to Fairfax on Monday was kind of like a half glass empty exercise, and yesterday was, glass half, probably 3/4 full exercise. And I've been a bit disappointed, I've got to say, by the treatment by News Limited papers this morning of the story. Just totally non-judgmental. It's like they all read like a press release. I got to say, yesterday was not a great day for media diversity. I mean, the Foxtel play, Packer goes out, Murdoch extends his ownership by 50%. Alan Kohler, one of the few independent business voices in Australia, is now on the payroll at News. I find that disappointing. I'm happy for him. and his colleagues. They're terrific at what they do, but I wished we'd kept that independent voice.
Yeah, well, I noticed you had a mini Twitter spat with our esteemed colleague, Mr. Kohler, yesterday. Rupert Murdoch has bought both the Business Spectator and Eureka sites. He does claim that there is nothing that's going to stop him from still being independent. He'll be still doing the nightly reports on ABC TV. He will still be presenting Inside Business on Sunday. Why should we disbelieve him?
Well, it's not that I don't believe him. I hope that is the case. But I think that there's a risk, isn't there, that subliminally he'll change his attitude, and so will some of his colleagues. But just on a very simple level, I would have liked to have gone today to Business Spectator as an independent assessor of the events of the week, and now I go there with a different mindset.
In terms of Kim Williams' performance yesterday, you said it was a great exercise in spin. Was it correct of him to select one radio program and one TV program to go on and be interviewed about this announcement?
Well, I mean, I guess, Karina, this shows the great value of owning 70% of Australia's newspapers. That's all you need to do, because the story's there this morning and it's unvarnished enthusiasm. So why would you put at risk that sort of media spin exercise by going out there and talking to media you don't control? So it doesn't surprise me that he limited his appearances. And I've got to say, his performance on PM last night on the ABC was needlessly aggressive and evasive. I thought he was much better on the 7:30 report.
Yeah, we had a pretty good questioner on PM as well, Mark Colburn. So let's not forget that.
Well, he had a good one at 7:30 as well, but I mean, I just thought he learned a few lessons at 6 o'clock and applied them at 7:30.
Yeah. Did he read your tweets, do you think?
Probably not, Karina. I don't think he follows me, no.
Now, Harold, you're a close friend of James Packer.
And Kim Williams,
and Kim Williams.
So I'll have to square this away at 9 o'clock, I go.
Yeah.
Sally, good on you, mate. It's very good of you.
He is now all but out of the media scene. He's still got that small stake in Channel 10. What would Kerry Packer be thinking about the Packer name no longer being associated with the media landscape in Australia?
Well, Kerry has always had very short sentences, and I'd put this one in 3 words. Well done, son. I'd have to say, just think of this. And I declare the interest that I'm on the board of Crown with James. But that organisation is headed towards making a profit as big as all 3 television networks put together. Now, that's not to say it's the end of television networks. They're very big. They control a lot of it. But and the media industry too. You know, we spend nearly 8 hours a day with the media. A massive amount of time that we do, but James has moved on. He's declared that quite some time ago, and I think he's done it in a pretty neat fashion.
Harold Mitchell, Bruce Guthrie, thank you both very much for your time this morning.